Hello, my name is Henry. I'm 23 years old and I live in a small apartment on the outskirts of Riverside, California. It's nothing special, just a one-bedroom place with thin walls and a kitchen that's barely big enough for a microwave and a mini fridge. I pay the rent by working part-time as a server at the Riverside Hotel, handling banquets and events. It's not my dream job, but it keeps me afloat. Most days, I show up in my white button-up shirt, black pants, and gloves, pushing carts of food and drinks through crowded rooms. The tips aren't great, but the work is straightforward. Smile, serve, stay invisible. I've been doing this for about 2 years now, ever since I dropped out of community college. I figured I'd go back someday, but life has a way of keeping you busy with the basics. That night was supposed to be just another shift. The hotel was hosting a high school reunion for some class from over 20 years ago. The ballroom was decked out with string lights, balloons, and a banner that read, "Class of 2004 Still Rocking." Laughter echoed off the walls as people in their 40s mingled, hugging and snapping selfies. I weaved through the crowd with a tray of appetizers, mini quiches, cheese puffs, and those fancy little tarts that always go first. My job was to keep the food circulating without drawing attention to myself. Stay polite, stay efficient, stay out of the way. As I made my rounds, I noticed her standing in the corner near the dessert table. She was a woman in her early 40s with her hair pulled back in a simple bun, wearing a modest black dress that looked like it had been chosen for comfort rather than show. She held a glass of water, sipping it slowly while smiling at passing conversations. But no one really stopped to talk to her. Groups formed around other women who were flashing diamond rings or showing off photos of their kids on their phones. I overheard snippets. "My husband just got promoted to VP." Or, "Our son is studying abroad in Europe. Can you believe it?" The woman in the corner just nodded politely when someone glanced her way, but her smiles didn't reach her eyes. I didn't recognize her at first. She seemed out of place, like she was there out of obligation rather than excitement. As I approached with my tray, I caught more of the chatter. One woman laughed and said to another, "Oh, the English teacher life, right? Probably still grading papers on weekends." Another chimed in, "Yeah, no husband yet? That's fine. Suits the independent type." They said it casually, like it was a joke, but there was an edge to it. The woman, Serena, as I'd later learn, didn't respond. She just raised her glass slightly as if toasting to their words, but her hand trembled a bit. It hit me then. She was invisible to them. In a room full of people celebrating their lives, she was the one fading into the background. I stepped closer, balancing the tray carefully. "Ma'am, would you like to try one of these?" I asked, keeping my voice low and professional. She turned to me, her eyes meeting mine for the first time. They were kind but tired, deep brown with faint lines at the corners that spoke of years spent reading late into the night. She shook her head gently. "No, thank you. I'm fine with water." That's when it happened. As she looked up, our gazes locked, and something clicked in my brain. I knew those eyes. They were the same ones that had stared me down in high school 5 years ago when I was a scrawny kid in the back of the class. Serena was my old English teacher, Miss Serena back then, the one who taught us about Shakespeare and symbolism, who pushed us to write essays that meant something. I remembered her voice, clear and patient, even when the class was rowdy. And I remembered the day she made me stand outside the door for not turning in my homework. It wasn't out of meanness, she just wanted us to take responsibility. But that day had stuck with me, not because I was mad, but because it was the only time she really noticed me. My hands started shaking. The tray wobbled, and before I could steady it, one of the small plates slid off the edge. It hit the floor with a crash, shattering into pieces and scattering crumbs across the carpet. The room went quiet for a split second, all eyes turning toward us. My face burned with embarrassment. "I'm so sorry," I stammered, dropping to my knees to pick up the shards. The manager, a stern guy named Mr. Ramirez, rushed over. "What the hell, Henry? That's coming out of your pay. Clean this up now." I nodded frantically, apologizing over and over, my heart pounding. Serena knelt down to help, picking up a few pieces despite my protests. "It's okay," she whispered. "Accidents happen." But her voice was soft, almost like she was used to smoothing over messes that weren't hers. As the crowd went back to their conversations, I glanced up at her again. She still didn't recognize me. To her, I was just the clumsy server. But to me, she was the teacher I'd secretly admired from afar, the one whose lessons made me want to be better, even if I never showed it. I didn't say anything then. How could I? But as I finished cleaning and backed away, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a coincidence. For the first time in years, I felt seen. And it was because of her, the one who'd always been invisible in her own way. After the crash of the plate, the manager pulled me aside in the kitchen, his face red with frustration. "Henry, that's the second mishap this month. Get your head straight or you're out." I nodded, mumbling another apology, and grabbed a broom to finish cleaning the mess in the ballroom. The guests had already moved on, their conversations buzzing louder than before, as if the incident was just a minor blip in their nostalgic evening. But my mind was stuck on her. Serena, standing there, helping me pick up shards like it was no big deal. She didn't have to do that. Most people would have just stepped back and let the help handle it. Once the floor was spotless, I slipped out to the balcony for a quick break. The night air was cool, a relief from the stuffy room inside. I leaned against the railing, staring out at the city lights twinkling below, trying to process what had just happened. How could she not recognize me? It had only been 5 years since high school, but I guess I'd changed. Taller now, with a bit more muscle from hauling trays and crates. Back then, I was the quiet kid in the back row, barely noticeable. Maybe that's why. That's when I saw her again. Serena had stepped out too, probably needing a breather from the crowd. She stood a few feet away, her arms crossed against the chill, gazing at the same skyline. Her profile was illuminated by the soft glow from the ballroom windows, and for a moment, I hesitated. Should I say something? Walk away? But then I remembered how she'd knelt to help me, and something pushed me forward. I grabbed a fresh glass of water from the service cart nearby and approached quietly. "Ma'am, excuse me. You look like you could use this, for the nerves or whatever." She turned, surprised at first, then accepted the glass with a small smile. "Thank you. That was kind of you." Her voice was just as I remembered. Calm, measured, like she was still in front of a classroom explaining iambic pentameter. Up close, I could see the faint weariness in her eyes, the way her shoulders slumped a little when she thought no one was watching. We stood in silence for a beat, the distant hum of traffic filling the air. Then she added, "I'm sorry about the plate. I hope it doesn't get you in too much trouble." "It's fine," I said, shifting my weight. "My fault entirely. I just got distracted." I paused, debating whether to say more, but the words came out before I could stop them. "You know, it's funny. Seeing you here reminds me of someone from my past." She tilted her head, curious. "Oh, who might that be?" I took a deep breath. "You, or at least the teacher version of you, Mrs. Serena, right? From Riverside High, class of 2018. I was in your senior English class, 12A3. Her eyes widened, and she studied my face more closely, like piecing together a puzzle. "Wait, Henry, the quiet one in the back, with the messy handwriting?" I chuckled, rubbing the back of my neck. "Yeah, that's me. Guilty as charged. I didn't expect you'd remember." She set the glass down on the railing, a mix of surprise and something softer crossing her features. "Of course I remember. You weren't the most talkative, but your essays had potential when you actually turned them in." She paused, then her expression shifted to one of mild regret. "There was that one time I made you stand outside the door for not doing the homework on symbolism in The Great Gatsby. I wasn't trying to be harsh. I just wanted you to take it seriously." I nodded, the memory flooding back vividly. It was a rainy afternoon, the classroom warm and stuffy, and I'd forgotten the assignment because I'd been up late helping my mom with bills after my dad left. Standing in the hallway, peering through the glass door, I'd felt like an idiot. But looking back, it wasn't anger I felt, it was motivation. "I know," I said softly. "You were just doing your job." But that day was my birthday. 18th, actually, not that it matters now. Serena's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes filling with genuine shock. "Your birthday?" "Oh, Henry, I had no idea. If I'd known." She trailed off, shaking her head. "I would have handled it differently. I'm so sorry. That must have felt awful." The apology hit me harder than I expected. All these years, I'd carried that moment as a quiet turning point, but hearing her say that made it feel real, human. It's okay, really, I replied, my voice steady. I didn't hold it against you. In fact, after that, I started paying more attention in class, turned in every assignment on time. Your lesson stuck with me more than you know. She looked at me, searching my face as if seeing me for the first time, not as the clumsy server or the forgotten student, but as someone who'd grown up. That's that's kind of you to say. Teaching can feel thankless sometimes. Hearing that means a lot. We fell into a comfortable silence again, the wind rustling the leaves below. But in my mind, thoughts raced. I didn't tell her the full truth, that standing outside that door had made me notice her more, not less. The way she paced the room, passionate about words and stories, had been my secret escape from a tough home life. I'd watch her from the back, admiring her poise, her intelligence, wishing I could be half as put together. As the party noise filtered out, she straightened up. Well, I should get back in there, before they notice I'm gone. She handed me the empty glass. Thank you, Henry, for the water, and for remembering. I watched her walk away, her steps measured and alone. In that moment, I realized she wasn't just my old teacher anymore. She was someone who'd felt invisible too, just like me back in school. And for the first time, I wanted her to know that at least one person had always seen her. The days after that balcony conversation blurred into a routine that felt anything but ordinary. I couldn't stop thinking about Serena, how she'd looked so alone in that crowded room, how her apology for something from years ago had cracked open a door I didn't even know was there. Work at the hotel kept me busy, but I started paying more attention to the schedule. Serena mentioned she taught part-time literature classes in one of the conference rooms upstairs, rented out for adult education sessions. Her students were mostly working professionals, brushing up on classics or writing skills. I noticed she always left around 8 p.m., her bag slung over her shoulder, looking a little more worn each time. I talked to my supervisor and volunteered for the evening shifts that overlapped with her classes. It wasn't hard. No one else wanted the late hours. At first, it was innocent enough. I'd position myself near the lobby elevators, pretending to restock supplies or wipe down tables, just to catch a glimpse of her as she walked out. She'd step into the cool evening air, her coat buttoned against the California chill, and I'd feel a pang in my chest. She was still the same Serena from high school, poised, intelligent, but now I saw the loneliness etched into her posture. The way she glanced at her phone as if hoping for a message that never came. I told myself I was just checking on her, making sure she got to her car safely in the dimly lit parking lot. But deep down, I knew it was more. I was stealing glances just like I had in class, only now it felt riskier, more real. One evening about a week later, our paths crossed deliberately. She was heading to the exit when I happened to be there with a cart of empty glasses. Ms. Serena, I called out softly. She turned, her expression shifting from surprise to a tentative smile. Henry, still on shift? Yeah, just wrapping up. How was class tonight? I asked, trying to sound casual. We fell into easy conversation, nothing deep, just chit-chat about the weather or a book she'd mentioned before. She recommended To Kill a Mockingbird again, saying it held up even better as an adult. I nodded, admitting I hadn't read it since her class. You should revisit it, she said, her eyes lighting up the way they used to during lectures. There's always something new to find. Those talks became a pattern, short, stolen moments in the lobby or by the doors. We'd discuss poems. Frost's The Road Not Taken was her favorite. Or she'd ask about my day, genuinely interested in the mundane details of serving tables. But as the weeks went on, I started noticing things that made my heart race. The way her hand brushed mine accidentally when she handed me a tip she insisted on giving, even though I refused. The subtle scent of her perfume, like vanilla and old books, that lingered after she left. And the thoughts. They crept in uninvited. She's your old teacher, Henry. She's almost twice your age. What are you doing? I'd stare at my reflection in the staff bathroom mirror, reminding myself I was just a server, barely scraping by while she was an educator, someone who'd shaped minds. Who was I to even dream of more? Self-doubt gnawed at me. She'd never see you that way. You're just the kid from the back row. I could tell Serena had her own reservations. Her smiles grew warmer, but she'd pull back sometimes, changing the subject if things got too personal. Once, after I asked about her weekend, she laughed it off. Oh, nothing exciting. Just grading papers and avoiding the dating apps my friends keep pushing. But her eyes flickered with something unspoken. Maybe embarrassment, maybe fear. I wanted to say, you deserve more than that, but the words stuck. Instead, we'd stick to safe topics literature, life lessons from her teaching days. Yet, in those moments, I felt seen too, like she valued my opinions despite our differences. The turning point came subtly at first, then hit like a wave. Rumors started circulating among the hotel staff and even some of her colleagues who used the space for meetings. I overheard two teachers in the break room. "Did you see that young server hanging around Serena? Looks like he's got a crush." One laughed. "Poor guy, she's way out of his league, and too old for that nonsense anyway." My stomach twisted. Then, worse, I caught wind that the gossip had reached her. A coworker of mine mentioned it casually. "Hey man, careful with that teacher lady. People are talking." Serena must have heard too, because the next time I tried to approach her in the lobby, she kept her distance. Her hello was polite but clipped, her eyes avoiding mine. "Busy night ahead," she said, hurrying toward the door without our usual chat. It stung more than I expected. Days turned into a week of radio silence. I'd see her from afar, but she wouldn't linger. The self-doubt amplified. She's right to pull away. What was I thinking? I'm just the guy who drops plates. Finally, I couldn't take it. Late one night after my shift, I pulled out my phone and sent a message to the number she'd given me weeks ago for book recommendations, she'd said. My fingers hovered, then typed, "I'm sorry if I've made things awkward. I didn't mean to overstep. Just wanted you to know that back in school, at least one person saw you as their whole world." I hit send, heart pounding, and stared at the screen. Delivered. Read. No reply. In that silence, I realized this wasn't just admiration anymore. It was love. Quiet, unasked for, but real. And if she wanted space, I'd give it. But I wouldn't regret letting her know she wasn't invisible, not to me. That night started like any other after our awkward silence. Me clocking out late, wiping down tables in the empty ballroom, replaying Serena's unread message in my head. I'd convinced myself it was over. She was my old teacher, a woman with a life full of responsibilities, and I was just the server who'd overstepped. The hotel felt quieter than usual, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead as I pushed the cart back to the kitchen. But as I passed the conference wing, something felt off. The door to one of the smaller rooms where Serena sometimes graded papers after her classes was cracked open, a faint light spilling into the hallway. Normally she'd be gone by now, but tonight the silence from inside was eerie. I paused, telling myself to keep walking. "It's not your business, Henry." But then I heard a soft thud, like something falling. My stomach dropped. I knocked lightly, no answer. Pushing the door open, I called out, "Hello? Anyone in here?" The room was dimly lit by a desk lamp, papers scattered across the table. A half-empty coffee cup tipped over. And there, slumped on the floor against the wall, was Serena. Her face was pale, eyes closed, breathing shallow. Panic hit me like a freight train. "Serena! Oh God, Serena!" I rushed to her side, dropping to my knees. Her skin was clammy, her pulse weak, but there. I remembered from basic first aid training at work. Low blood pressure, maybe? She'd mentioned once in passing that she sometimes skipped meals during long days. Without thinking, I scooped her up in my arms. She was lighter than I expected, fragile in a way that twisted my gut. Her head lolled against my shoulder as I carried her down the hall, my legs shaking but refusing to give out. "Hang on, please, hang on," I whispered, bursting through the lobby doors. The night clerk at the front desk saw us and yelled for help, dialing 911. I didn't let go until the paramedics arrived, prying her from my arms as they loaded her onto a stretcher. The ambulance ride was a blur, sirens wailing, me in the back holding her hand, answering questions about what I'd seen. At the hospital, they rushed her into the ER, leaving me in the waiting room, pacing like a caged animal. My uniform was wrinkled, stained with coffee from her cup, but I didn't care. Hours ticked by, midnight came and went. Finally, a doctor emerged. "She's stable. Low blood pressure from dehydration and stress. She fainted, but no serious damage. You can see her now." I entered the room quietly, the beeps of monitors the only sound. Serena lay there, IV in her arm, looking small under the thin blanket. Her eyes fluttered open as I approached. Henry? She whispered, her voice hoarse. What? What happened? You passed out in the conference room, I said, pulling up a chair. I found you, carried you out, and got help. My hands were still trembling as I sat down, relief flooding me. She tried to sit up but winced. Why were you there? Your shift? I was just finishing up. I lied at first, then shook my head. No, that's not true. I've been watching out for you, making sure you got to your car okay, ever since that message I sent. Her eyes met mine, a mix of confusion and something deeper, vulnerability. The one you didn't reply to. She looked away toward the window where the city lights flickered. I read it, over and over, but I didn't know what to say. Henry, you're young. You have your whole life ahead, and me? I'm your old teacher. 41, single, buried in papers and regrets. What could you possibly see in someone like me? Her words hung heavy, echoing the doubts I'd battled myself. I leaned forward, my voice steady despite the knot in my throat. Everything. Back in school, you were the one who made me believe words could change things. You saw potential in a kid like me when no one else did. And now, I see you, the real you. The woman who smiles through being ignored at reunions, who helps a clumsy server pick up broken plates, who pours her heart into teaching even when life's beaten you down. You're not invisible, Serena, not to me. Tears welled in her eyes, spilling over as she reached for my hand. Her grip was weak but warm. All my life, I've done what's right. Stayed single because no one stuck around. Focused on my students because that's what I knew. But I've never let myself want more. Never let anyone in. And you're here after all this time. I squeezed her hand gently. Because if I hadn't checked on you tonight, if I hadn't been looking like I have been, I'd regret it forever. I don't care about the age or what people say. Let me be wrong for once. Wrong because I care about you. More than care, I love you, Serena, have for years, even if I didn't know it back then. She cried then, soft sobs that shook her shoulders. Henry, I don't know if I can promise anything. I'm scared. Of the whispers, the judgments, but tonight, when I woke up and saw you, I felt safe for the first time in so long. We sat like that, hands intertwined, the hospital room fading around us. The doctor came back to check her vitals, but even then she didn't let go. As the night wore on, we talked, really talked, about her fears of growing old alone, my insecurities about being just a server, and how that one punishment outside the classroom door had unknowingly connected us. No grand plans, no vows, just honesty. By dawn, as they prepared to discharge her, I knew things had changed. She wasn't pulling away anymore, and neither was I. The days following that hospital night felt like stepping into a new world, one where the air was lighter, the colors sharper. Serena was discharged the next morning with orders to rest, hydrate, and manage her stress. I drove her home in my beat-up sedan, the silence between us comfortable rather than tense. She leaned her head against the window, watching the riverside streets blur by, and when we pulled up to her modest bungalow, she turned to me. Thank you, Henry, for everything. I helped her inside, made sure she had water and her medications, then lingered at the door. Call if you need anything. I mean it. She nodded, and for the first time, there was no pulling away in her eyes. From then on, things shifted slowly, deliberately. Serena started showing up at the hotel not for classes or meetings, but around the end of my shifts. She'd wait in the lobby, a book in hand, pretending to read but glancing up when I emerged from the kitchen. Fancy seeing you here, I'd say with a grin, and she'd roll her eyes playfully. We'd walk out together, no longer hiding behind coincidences. At first, it was just coffee at a small diner down the street, the kind with vinyl booths and bottomless refills. We'd sit across from each other, sipping black coffee, hers, and soda, mine, talking about anything but the elephant in the room. Our conversations deepened over those weeks. She'd share stories from her teaching days, funny anecdotes about unruly students, or the rare moments when a kid's essay moved her to tears. I'd open up about my own life, growing up with a single mom after dad bailed, dropping out of college because the loans piled up faster than my motivation. I always felt like I was standing outside, looking in, I admitted one evening, stirring my drink. Like that day in your class. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine, and I felt invisible even when I was the one in front, grading papers alone on weekends, watching my friends build families while I didn't. We talked about regrets, dreams deferred. She loved poetry, Whitman, Dickinson, and I'd listen, mesmerized, as she recited lines about solitude and connection. "Do you think we're crazy for this?" she'd ask sometimes, her voice low. I'd shake my head. "No, we're just real." The whispers started soon enough. Hotel staff noticed us leaving together. A coworker nudged me one day. "That teacher lady? Careful, man, she's got years on you." Serena heard it too, from colleagues at school, subtle comments like, "Who's the young guy picking you up?" or "midlife crisis." It stung her more than me. One night, as we walked to her car under the streetlights, she stopped. "Henry, people are talking. I can feel their eyes. I'm tired of caring what they think, but it's hard." Her voice cracked, vulnerability raw. I took her hand. "I've spent my life on the edges too. Standing outside your classroom door, feeling like I didn't belong, but now? I just want to stand next to you, if that's okay." She squeezed my hand back. "It is. More than okay." From there, we leaned into it. No big declarations, just small steps. I'd bring her lunch during her breaks, simple sandwiches from the deli, and we'd eat in the park, laughing about old school memories. She invited me over for dinner one weekend, pasta with homemade sauce, candlelight flickering on her cluttered table stacked with books. We didn't rush physically, it was about presence, about filling the quiet spaces in each other's lives. I'd help her grade papers, sometimes offering my amateur insights, and she'd tease me gently. "See? You had potential back then." In those moments, the age gap faded. She wasn't my teacher anymore, she was Serena, the woman who made me feel like I mattered. A year passed in that gentle rhythm. The rumors quieted, or maybe we just stopped hearing them. Then came the next reunion, the class of 2004's annual gathering back at the Riverside Hotel. I wasn't working that night. Instead, I was her date. We walked in hand, her dress simple but elegant, my shirt pressed for once. Heads turned, whispers rippled. "Is that with him?" But Serena held her head high, her grip firm on mine. For the first time, she wasn't in the corner with a water glass. People approached, not out of pity, but curiosity. "Serena, you look great. Who's this?" She'd smile, genuine now. "This is Henry, my partner." No explanations needed. As the night wore on, we danced to some old 90s tune, her laughter echoing in my ear. She wasn't invisible anymore, and neither was I. Looking back, our story wasn't about fireworks or fate. It was about two people who'd spent too long on the sidelines, finding each other in the quiet. Love doesn't need approval or labels. It just needs two people willing to see each other. Serena taught me that, first in class, then in life. What do you think about love that doesn't need to be public? Looking back on it all, our story carries a simple but profound message. Love often begins in the quietest places, like a stolen glance or a forgotten punishment, and it can bridge gaps of time, age, and status if we let it. It reminds us that no one is truly invisible. Everyone deserves to be seen for who they are, beyond labels like teacher or server. Serena and I showed that healing comes not from grand gestures, but from choosing to stand beside someone, even when the world whispers doubts. Age and past mistakes don't define worth. What matters is the courage to embrace what's real, right now. The emotional tone of our journey was one of gentle transformation, from the subtle sadness of feeling overlooked and the quiet ache of unspoken longing, to the warmth of mutual recognition and the hopeful glow of shared presence. It wasn't dramatic or tearful at every turn. Instead, it built slowly, like a steady flame, leaving us both with a sense of peace we'd never known before. In the end, love like ours isn't about forever. It's about today, and that's enough.